In this week's In-Ear Insights, let's talk about the workforce potential of artificial intelligence. We spend a lot of time, and I know I spend a lot of time personally digging into the technology, what it is and how it works. And today, let's talk about the applications. How is this stuff being used? So, Katie, you found some stuff from the folks over at Gartner. We want to recap what you found?
Yeah, so over the weekend, I was scrolling through LinkedIn like everybody does when they're, waiting for their tires to be rotated or, in line at the grocery store. And what caught my eye was someone posting about the Gartner, a new video that they posted, Unlock the Potential of Your Workforce with AI from their Think Again series. And I was reading through the comments of, the person who had posted it. And so the whole premise of this research, and we have it up on our screen if you're not watching our podcast, is that they have from 2023 to 2033 their predictions of people versus AI, essentially. So what tasks will AI outperform people, and what tasks do the human outperform the AI counterpart? And unsurprisingly, the thing that AI is going to do better than human at the top of the list is weather prediction. Well, no kidding. Our meteorologists have been wrong for years. I would be shocked if AI could start to get it right, given all the crappy data that we have to give it. But then you start to get into things that are really around development versus human tasks. And then at the bottom of the list, where the humans outperform the AI, are more of the human tasks, such as personal care, which makes sense. But then you have other things that I thought were interesting, such as build new scientific theories, moral and ethical reasoning, and writing best-selling books. And I saw this, and to me logically it makes sense, but the commentary, the feedback from everybody reading this was like, phew, thank goodness I knew AI wasn't that good, or I knew it was a flash in the pan. And I feel like there's a lot of misunderstanding for this kind of data. This data is saying today, this is sort of where we stand. In 10 years, this is all going to be different. We're assuming that AI is going to outperform on most of these things. But as of today, humans, we still have a leg in the race.
This is a poorly constructed chart because I can't tell if it's by percentage or if it's by over time, because they have 2023 to 2033 at the sort of the top as an axis. I'm not sure what I'm looking at.
Well, which I think is ironic given how hard our charts are to read at times. But so basically, if I'm just looking at this at face value and taking if I'm looking at this on a time continuum, so on the left is 2023, on the right is 2033, to me it looks like it's almost that progression where, so driving a car autonomously. So it starts with human, 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 and then it's like, oh, nope, AI is going to outperform it like somewhere in 2028, which is sort of the midpoint. If we look at software programming, we know already that that's sort of a paired AI and human. And so you need the human interaction. So it doesn't get into the details of how much of the task, but it's just mostly saying like you need both AI and humans for certain things. The only thing that you 100% don't need humans for anymore is weather prediction, apparently.
So I know these things are typically done with interviews with like C-suite executives and things, asking them, hey, what's your perspective on this? From a technological perspective, looking at where models are today and what's possible, 100% of this chart is wrong. 100% of this chart is dramatically overestimating human beings. AI already beats human beings at video games. No question. If you look at the StarCraft automations and things, it's an easy win. For breadth of translation, AI already outperforms humans on that. AI can translate things that we can't because it can infer things like restoring dead languages that have long since been out of circulation, and based on the child languages from those forks, it can reconstruct the parent language, which has been done a lot in academia. It's very cool. Voice and face recognition, AI already dramatically outperforms that to the point where we have real problems societally right now with things like, is facial recognition, should it be ubiquitous or not? The EU has passed a law saying you may not use AI for certain types of face recognition. For voice recognition, it's already built in. Driving a car autonomously, machines outperform humans already. The only reason we don't have that is regulatory more than anything. For medical scan diagnosis, machines outperform humans. There were some clinical papers that came out last week actually demonstrating that machines have a 20% absolute higher accuracy rate on medical scan diagnosis than humans do, which, if you think about it, is literally life-saving. That machines can do that so much better. For software programming is an interesting one. Machines can program better right now, but they don't have the agency to make decisions like, what should this software do? You give it purpose and a prompt and focus, and it can write the code for you very quickly, but it has no agency of its own. For financial analysis, machines are already doing that dramatically better than humans. Ask anyone who has been using these tools for things like stock picking. Creating music is one where I think that one's wrong in the other direction. Machines are profoundly bad at creating music. They are, with all the language models and all of the sequencing models that come out, there isn't a single one that has come up with anything that doesn't sound like garbage. Like it's, and the reason for it is because the weird nature of audio. It's much more complex, and it predates language. So language models are trying to use language models to predict things that are not language. Writing best-selling books. Again, I think that one is overly optimistic. Machines will outperform humans on that sooner rather than later. There's already a ton of well-selling books, not best-selling, but well-selling books on Amazon that are completely machine-made. Moral and ethical reasoning. Machines can reason, whether or not, but that comes back to the agency problem. The question is, can they reason on their own? The answer is no. Building new scientific theories, that is completely wrong. Machines are already doing that better. In fact, last week, machines just developed 8 classes of new antibiotics based on some material science that no one even considered. Now they have to go into testing to prove it. And personal care therapy is going to be ones like driving cars. Machines can do that stuff today. But it is unregulated, and it clearly needs to be regulated because that's that's very high risk. So most of this chart, at least from my perspective as a technologist, is utterly wrong.
From a technology standpoint, I hear you. From a non-technology standpoint, I disagree with you on your assessment, primarily because you said something when you were talking about software programming that you didn't carry through with everything else. You said with software programming, the machines can't make decisions. Therefore, that to me says, well, how come they can make decisions with everything else? And so if machines can't make decisions, humans are still the ones responsible. So I agree that machines are better at a medical scan diagnosis, but then a doctor still has to intervene to put together a care plan because no two humans. So like you and I, Chris, could both get medical scans, but we are inherently so different from our DNA, our physical stature, our, medical history, that you're going to get 2 very different care plans, even if we go in for the same thing. And so same thing with driving a car autonomously. There's too much unpredictability. Sure, I hear you about regulations. Like if every single car on the road forever, no more humans could drive, sure. I don't see that happening because it's not accessible to every single human on the face of the planet, especially in, less affluent parts of the country, less affluent part of the world. They don't have access. So they are still going to be driving, 40, 50-year-old cars just to get around to get basic needs. Voice and facial recognition. Sure, I agree with you on that one because there's not a lot of decision to be made. Competing in video games. It's interesting. So, because I sort of put that in the same bucket as software programming of it's a lot of code and algorithms, but in terms of competing in a video game, I put that sort of in the same bucket of creating music and writing best-selling books. You cannot clone and program human creativity, the things that we come up with in our brain that are uniquely human, that are weird and odd. And, I had this dream last night that made no sense, but let me string together these 5 crazy things and turn that into a story. A machine isn't going to be able to create and think uniquely the same way that humans do. I can see the face you're making that you think that I'm inherently wrong, but I will totally fight you on that.
For video games in particular, machines are extremely good at that and decisioning for it, because there's a clear objective. There's a clear victory condition to which it can adapt and permute. This has been done for everything from chess to Go to StarCraft to Defense of the Ancients. All the games where AI has been used to successfully just beat the pants off of humans. That is clearly an area where machines have a nearly unbeatable edge. For the other ones, I do agree with you in that machines can't make decisions autonomously in a lot of cases because they're not sentient, they're not self-aware. With autonomous driving, that's again another one where there's a victory condition. Right? Don't hit things. Stay on the road. Get from point A to point B without driving off a cliff. There's clear victory conditions for that. Other things like creating music. What does winning look like when you create music? Is it making a top 40 pop bestseller? There's no good victory condition, so it's much harder to tune a model on those things. And that's where a lot of these tasks, when you look at unlocking the potential of your workforce, at the very least, every single one of these is going to be AI and human coexistence, because machines can just do good, huge chunks of it for us. But in a lot of them, the machine does outperform. To your point about medical scan diagnosis, the decisioning the decision for that more than anything is going to be a legal matter. Like, who is responsible for saying, well, here's the treatment plan, Katie. The machine diagnosed you with this, and I'm going to prescribe you this. And if that turns out to be wrong, who is accountable for it? We have not worked out in law whether a machine is accountable. And if so, is it the software developer? Is it the model maker? Is it the tuner? Is it the person using it? We don't have that worked out yet for artificial intelligence. It will take some time to get there. But for other things, for sure, machines are already outperforming humans.
So it's, there's some themes that keep sort of coming out that, we can sort of pick apart in terms of, this is just a fancy wrapper for, will AI take my job? And so, I feel like companies are forever trying to answer this question instead of just doing something about it. And so the real theme that seems to be emerging for me when I'm, we're having this conversation and I'm sort of processing the information, is that there is a place for humans in terms of critical thinking, in terms of creativity, in terms of decision making, accountability, process development. So that's where, when it says unlock the potential of your workforce, let AI do all of the number crunching and programming and, I forget what you call it, like sort of the like victory goal, like when there's a clear outcome. But humans still need to come up with the thing. Like, yes, machines, they can come up with the new scientific theories, but they're not going to come up with everything. Humans are still going to have ideas uniquely human that machines won't be, quote unquote, thinking of, because it's not part of their data set. It's not part of the algorithm. It's not part of the information they have. I think about like a Stephen King novel, for instance. Yes, he's written so many books at this point that you could load all of them into a model and it could probably write a quote unquote Stephen King book. But the reason why Stephen King is still Stephen King and still a best-selling author is because every time he comes out with a book, it's a new idea. There's something new that he himself has not yet written about. And so that to me is where, sure, machines can write some, mediocre, mildly well-selling books, but they're never going to be a Stephen King.
I don't know that that's going to be the case. And the reason I don't know that's going to be the case is when looking at what's happening on Instagram. So on Instagram, you are seeing, multi-million person followers, influencer accounts that are completely synthetic, and there's no human. All the travel photos and all the stuff is completely synthesized, and yet people engage with it. People spend a lot of money with these influencers. And I know you're rolling your eyes, but
I am rolling my eyes.
But this is what human beings are doing, because what they're getting from the synthetic personality is good enough for them to say, yeah, I want to spend money with this entity, even if in many cases, to even a moderately trained eye, you can tell it's synthetic. You can tell this is not a real human being. There are obvious flaws in what's being displayed, but people don't care. People want the entertainment in whatever form it's delivered in. And I think for things like writing best-selling books, yes, you can. We saw in the Nature magazine study that machines do divergent thinking on average 20% better than humans do for coming up with creative ideas. Again, they have no agency, so they have to be prompted to do it, but they can do it better than we can on average. Now, again, from that same study, it did demonstrate that the best human creative thinkers are better than the best machine made creators, but that's the edge case. That's that top 1%. Everybody else, thanks to the majority of humans being not great creative thinkers, the machines simply do better. And so for a lot of these things, when it comes to how do you think about applying AI in your workforce, a lot of it is not just doing the grunt work, but also saying what are the things that are uniquely human that machines probably won't do anytime soon. And you nailed it, which is the human to human interface, right? Because everything machines do has to at some point interface back to a human. A human has to buy something. No one has turned over their purchasing department to machines yet. And so at the end of the day, the outputs do have to go back to a human, and probably through a human. And certainly we advise all of our customers, you never let a machine do any kind of major process unattended. They're not ready for that yet. But from A to Z, machines can do basically B through Y, and it's the A and the Z that are human parts.
Well, I mean, if you think all the way back to, you have the Henry Ford assembly lines. Yes, it streamlined the production of motor vehicles. Absolutely. And sure, a lot of people at that time were out of a job because of the way that the work changed. But not 100% of the people were out of a job. You still needed people overseeing and monitoring and making sure things didn't break. And so those are the people that, at least when we look at this list, they'll be fine for now. But then, so that's where, we need to look at, okay, if I've only ever been doing the same thing over and over again, if I only ever create a report once a week, if I only ever put numbers in a spreadsheet, yes, this is the kind of thing that you should be worried about. So then when it says unlocking the potential of your workforce, what aren't you doing? Do you now have an opportunity to let the machine put the numbers in the spreadsheet for you, and then you take it that step further and figure out what to do with the numbers? That's really what it comes down to, is what's the next step? Let the machine do the grunt work. Let the machine program the software. Let the machine write the first draft. Let the machine, create the hypothesis. You, the human, then say, yes, this is good, or no, this is bad. What else can we do with this? What are we missing? What aren't we doing? And I think that that's the conversation that isn't being had enough. It's being had, but we're so focused on the fear of, when is my job going to be taken? When am I going to be out of a job? That we're not focusing on, great, let it take that part of my job. What else can I do?
You and I were having a conversation before we hit record about, managing the data in a spreadsheet. And one of the things you said was, I can't get ahead on my stuff because I have to manage other stuff. And when you said that, that made me go, why haven't we tried having a machine do this yet? Because the work that's being asked of it is stuff that is within the capability of a language model, because it's just processing text and outputting a known format. And I think that's where the true unlocking of potential for your workforce is. Exactly what you said. It is, here's some stuff that it's important, but it's still relatively low value. Now, all the low value, here's the challenge with this. All the low value tasks add up to high value decisions, right? So if you just say, we're not going to do these low value tasks, well, then you can't make a decision, because the high value decisions have dependencies on the low value stuff. Hence why you have to keep it around. But that low value stuff really is, okay, how much of it can we hand over to machines, and how quickly can we hand it over to machines so that it's less time? Last week, when I was putting together some content curation setups for one of our clients, one of the first things I did was, okay, I need to designate some topics and things for this. I handed 100% of that task off to a language model. Like, there is no reason for me to be manually hunting down keywords anymore. That goes straight into a language model. And then for our own stuff, when I looked at it this weekend, when I was pulling data for my personal newsletter, it was much better. It was so much better, because the machines had more comprehensive knowledge of the space than I did at the time, and better memory of it. And it was a clear case where that task still only takes 2 minutes a week, but now the quality has gone up significantly because let machines handle more and more of it. The code itself, I've now revamped that code 3 times in the last year, whereas I hadn't touched it once in 3 years because it's labor, right? It's manual labor. It's coding, so it's not like I'm lifting logs, but at the same time, it's drudgery. And so now I can hand my existing code to a machine and say, hey, here's my code. Let's improve this. Here's what I want to improve. And it will do it. It will get it 95% right. There'll be 5% still screwed up, but it's easy to fix the screw ups. And so that's another example. If you unlock the potential of your workforce, yes, I can do more of these low value things, but they add up to a very high value output.
And I think that's a big part of the conversation that's also not being had, is it's the accumulation of tasks. So I could say, sure, 95% of my job is now automated. But if you start to pick apart each of those individual tasks, they really all add up. You need every single one of those things. And those take a lot of maintenance. Those take a lot of human intervention. And so I'm not going anywhere anytime soon, because even if I hand over my stuff to machines, I still need to make sure all of those individual low value pieces that add up to the big things are all working correctly. So I'm not going anywhere. My job is safe, even if I am using machines 95% of the time.
Right. There's a shadow economic impact, which is that we're not hiring more people, right? So we're because the machine, we don't have to hire. Our company is now almost 6 years old, and we still have not, for the amount of work that we do, we should have probably in the old days prior to AI, we would have had 10 more people on staff because we just have that much work to do. But because of machinery, we've not had to hire. So there is an economic impact. It's just that we've not laid anyone off, but we have not expanded our workforce substantially as part of it. And even today, we're building new things. We're currently working on building attribution modeling software for HubSpot. So inside the HubSpot ecosystem to do essentially Markov chain modeling with that. Again, we're using machines. Machines are writing the code. We still have to provide the guidance to say, like, here's what I want it to do. But boy, is it doing software programming for us.
Yeah, it's interesting. We all, as I've always been saying, it's new tech, same old problems. I feel like AI is new tech doing things different than other tech has done before, but it's the same problem. I think about, internet research versus library research, or, data processing versus hand calculations. There's room for both of those things. It's just a matter of taking a step back and figuring out what the heck it is you need to do. And I think that's where, to your point, this chart kind of doesn't tell the whole story. I mean, we know it doesn't tell the whole story. It's just like one single bar chart. There's room for both. It's just a matter of what does that look like in each individual situation. I'm someone, I love the library. Give me the library all day long, and I don't want to sit at a computer at all. But that's me personally. You, Chris, would rather be at a computer and have things done faster, whereas I prefer sort of like the more slower. And that's purely because of how our brains process information. You process things 10 times faster than I do. I take a lot longer to pull all of the information together and feel like I can feel confident to make a decision, whereas your brain just works that much faster. And that, I think, is where we're going to start to see, people who are setting the course in an individual company. It's how their brain works, is how they are also going to dictate how they're using the technology.
And there's also a gap that's not reflected on here as well. And I think this goes well with your point, which is to unlock the power of AI, at least in these nascent first few years, this first decade or so of it, you're going to need connectivity tissue to make these things work. So, right now people have Chat GPT. The vast majority of people using generative AI are using something like Chat GPT. Super low tech, right? It's just a browser and a chat, and it does a really good job. But to make it scale, now you need technological help, right? If you got to go from Chat GPT to the GPT-4 API so that you can make things at scale, Chat GPT does not do that. And an organization that wants to make that scale leap, that's a big cliff to jump. It's not, there's no gradual progression. When I look at the things that on this list that I know machines can do today and outperform humans, the asterisk, the gotcha is you need to have someone who has experience with technology to implement it, because the pieces of software that exist are like engines. They're really good. They're really powerful. They're amazing. But no one drives a car by sitting on the engine and four wheels, right? There's usually seats and a steering wheel and a cabin and air conditioning and a radio. None of that exists in an engine. So we have the engines for all these things today. For example, personal care and therapy, there's a model called Beyonder that just came out last week that is incredible. It is so powerful, and it runs on your laptop. It's not easy to use, right? You have to install LM Studio, you have to download the model, you have to download the correct quantized version, install it.
Yeah, you've already lost me.
Yeah. And so that will be, I think, the gap where, does the technology exist for all these things today? Yes. Can AI perform on all these things today? Mostly, yes. Can the average person or the average company unlock that value with it? No. That's the gap.
Well, to borrow a Chris Penn analogy, all the ingredients exist for a gourmet meal. That doesn't mean I can make it. I could install, a professional chef's kitchen in my house. I could buy, $1,000 worth of ingredients. I'm probably still going to be better off making a box of mac and cheese, because that I know I can do. I'm probably going to screw up the rest of it.
Yep. I mean, even last week when we did our live stream talking about deliverability for email, we walked through step by step here, on live on screen. Here's how to do it. And we still got inquiries after saying, please come do this for me. It's like, but I just showed you how to do it step by step. I gave you the recipe. And you're like, nope, I'm making the mac and cheese. You cook it.
Because not everyone's a technologist. Not everyone's a chef. And there are certain things like technology or cooking that can be really intimidating to someone. And so they would rather leave it to the experts. And so one of the things we'll be talking about over the next couple of weeks is, what does it look like to comprise an AI task force? What does that mean? Who do you need? What does that look like for a company? What is the end game?
Yep, exactly. And yeah, I think the hard part for this stuff will not be the technology. It will be interfacing the technology with people and getting people to be able to use the technology in a low bandwidth way, meaning that you don't have to think terribly hard. I think ChatGPT did a really good job of saying, like, hey, here's a low bandwidth way to interact with a very complex system.
A really good example of this, not AI, but of the getting people to use the interface of technology. I actually saw this Instagram reel this morning. So if you're a football fan, then you know that over the weekend, NBC made a very controversial decision to not have the wild card game between, it was the Chiefs and maybe the Packers, I think. I might be getting that wrong. Please don't come after me, but I know the Chiefs played. And so basically they made the decision to not put it on cable, to not put it on regular NBC, but to only stream it on Peacock, which is the NBC streaming service. Now, I saw this, reel this morning, and it was basically this couple who was probably about my age, and this woman was talking to the phone, basically begging Peacock to stop doing this, because an hour into the game, her husband was still on the phone with her parents, trying to walk them through how to download the Peacock app and install it and sign up for it so that they could also watch the game. And this is stuff that, when my husband said, oh, it's on Peacock, I was able to log in and get him set up within 30 seconds, because to me, it's second nature. But it's not to everybody. And that is a very simplistic process. this is not simplistic at all. And I think you're absolutely right that the getting the humans to be able to interface with it is going to be the hardest part.
It's funny you use that example because that's how I feel when I talk to you about this stuff. It's like, well, just install Elm Studio, and then find the
I'm the
appropriate model,
boomer
Hugging
parent.
Face, download it, make sure it's the Q5 quantization, and make sure you set the model to load memory and use the Metal API. It's easy, 30 seconds.
1, 2, 3.
But that makes the point very well that the unlocking the potential of your workforce with AI is less about the technology and more about the people in the process. And if it's something
100%.
that you want some help with, that's something we do
Absolutely. And we do it very well.
with AI.
With AI.
But no, in all seriousness, the potential, unlocking the potential of the workforce in AI is as much about people and process as it is technology. The technology exists today. There are so many things that you should have in your R&D capabilities to just people trying things out. And I think having a culture of experimentation where you allocate time and resources to experimentation will be critical for maintaining a competitive edge with AI, to be willing to say, yeah, employee, 5 hours of your work week should be just trying to do different things with AI to see if you can, and to see if there's a use case for it. If you have something like ChatGPT, yeah, you should be spending 5 hours a week. Okay, let me see if I can make this part of my job easier with ChatGPT. Maybe you can, maybe you can't, but you should be trying. Any final parting thoughts?
Just, keep asking questions. Don't be afraid of it. And focus less on will it take my job and focus more on what else can I do?
Exactly. What are you doing with AI? We want to know. Drop us a line in our free Slack group. Go to trustinsights.ai/analytics for marketers, where you and over 3,000 other people are asking and answering each other's analytics, data science, and AI questions every single day. And wherever it is you watch or listen to the show, if there's a channel you'd rather have it on instead, go to trustinsights.ai/TI podcast, where you can find us on most major channels. We just added, I think, Boombox, so we're streaming there now. The service provider we use gives us a whole bunch of checkboxes like, do you want your podcast here? The answer is yes. So wherever it is you get the show, please make sure you leave us a rating and a review. It does help to share the show. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.